Okay, now that you know about Project Zero from their official website, let's get to know more about teaching for understanding. As you could see, the idea is that we don't teach students in order for them to master facts. Instead, we do teach for them to be able to flexibly apply knowledge into different familiar and unfamiliar contexts. We can be honest and admit that we all have once had students who have asked the following question: Teacher, but why do I need to learn that? What for? And that is a valid question. And to a valid question, we must provide a valid answer. We cannot just say just because, or because it's important, or because it's going to be on the test. We cannot refer to academic relevance because in that sense, everything turns out to be academically relevant. Instead, students need to honestly know when, where, and how they will need and they will apply the knowledge that they are dealing with in the classroom. The purpose of them studying this or that needs to be explicit, public, and honest, and especially related to life. We say that it is a valid question because in teaching for understanding, questioning is okay. It is helpful to question because it makes us think and rethink, consider and reconsider, and it is for the sake of learning, for the sake of reaching a deeper understanding. If we have been asked this question, we can see that it is natural. We teachers are pedagogists. We shouldn't take things personal. If students question knowledge, it doesn't mean that we don't know anything. It just means that we may have to accept that we can be wrong sometimes, or that we don't have the answer all the times. That is also valid. It's for the sake of learning. This is why doing teaching for understanding implies a lot of carefully thought questions in the classroom. Alright, another important point in teaching for understanding is that students don't need to be experts at everything. Students don't need to know everything. Instead, they would rather need to practice everything, have them do something with knowledge. This is a very curious and important fact supported by research done by National Geographic Learning. Look, we remember 20% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear, 70% of what we see, hear, and discuss, and 90%. We remember 90% of what we see, hear, discuss, and practice. Does it ring any bells? Does it make sense for you? Take some seconds to think about it. How much of each do you ask your students to do? Okay, let's continue. We believe our point has been very clear. Teaching for understanding is definitely not teaching to memorize. Instead, it promotes active use of knowledge. That means, in our case, English and contents understanding in English. We, teachers, are encouraged and called to create thinking opportunities not only in the classroom but also at school. How deep and how often are we invited to think and to go deeper into matters and issues? This is also understanding, going deeper and going beyond. If knowledge is static, learning cannot be static. It needs to be dynamic. In order to create such thinking opportunities, teaching for understanding invites us to go through three different moments, three different performances of understanding. But first of all, what is a performance of understanding? Well, what we really need to be clear about is that a performance of understanding is not an activity or a bunch of activities. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. How deep our students get to think. A performance of understanding transcends the idea of an activity and leads us to plan and carry out cycles of action and thinking. This is what a performance of understanding is, a cycle, a well-thought cycle so that students develop deep thinking. Performances always focus on what students do and what they do to think, not on what teachers do to teach. No. One of these performances is called exploring. This is a stage for students to get in touch with knowledge, whether it's new or not. They go through motivational exploring moments so that they have initial ideas about a topic or so that they find out very interesting pieces of information that can foster deep thinking. This is also a reason to explore. We may know the beginning of our research, or maybe we have the intention, but sometimes we don't know how much we can find or how far we can go, and this is also very, very valuable. Another performance of understanding is guided research, which doesn't mean students doing academic research all the time, no. What it means is students going through learning experiences that help them build knowledge, reaching deep understanding, and experiment processes related to the field that they are studying. It's highly important that students are deeply involved with these performances all the time. An active role on them makes a difference in their results and success. Then we have final synthesis projects, concrete projects where students apply all theories and knowledge into practical experiences to get concrete results to share. These results are their thinking made visible. In this sense, would units of action be final synthesis projects? Yes, of course, but since units of action have a very specific structure, not all final synthesis projects are units of action. When we talk about teaching for understanding, we need to talk about autonomy. But let's stop for a second. Not the kind of autonomy that we usually think about, not the disciplinary one, the moral one. This time, we don't refer to moral autonomy, but to intellectual autonomy. We don't talk about good or bad because that's moral autonomy. We talk about students thinking by themselves. We talk about students being encouraged to think outside the box. We talk about students being encouraged to interact in order to share their thoughts and ideas and in order to negotiate meanings with the members of their educational community. This leads us to think about the cultural forces stated by teaching for understanding, forces to transform the school into a thinking community. The first cultural force is expectations. This means that students naturally have expectations, but what is the idea? Well, it's important that students' expectations arise about learning and not about the academic process. In a clear way, it's vital that students feel moved by the nature of learning and its importance and not by superficial reasons such as grades and pride. This is when life outside the school kicks in and makes us realize and connect our actions in the classroom with what students will be likely to do and live when they finish high school. The second cultural force is opportunities, and it refers to how teachers, principals, and every member of the school can guarantee thinking opportunity for students to reflect and develop deep thinking and understanding in their daily life at school. The third cultural force is time. Time for students to think and explore. And here we have a role. We are to foster depth and not speed. What does it mean? When we ask a question, we are to praise deep answers and not fast ones. It's okay to take time to think. It increases the quality of the answer. So, from now on, a deeper answer that took a little longer is better than a quick one. Next one is modeling. Students who admire their teachers because of their skills and talent in their field are more motivated to develop thinking and understanding. Students are to admire and respect teachers for their way to think and not for their authority power. The fifth one is language, the language necessary for students to develop thinking and make it visible by expressing it in any way. The sixth one is environment. This refers to the nonverbal language of the school, of the institution. It honors students' thinking and makes it visible for all the educational community. But wait, it doesn't mean putting up all students' work on all the walls of the school. Nope, it's about dedicating spaces to share students' thinking visible and foster interaction about it. Otherwise, this would only turn into visual pollution. The seventh one is interaction, a key factor when it comes to teaching for understanding because all relationships within an educational community find light in interaction, respect, collective building of knowledge, and interculturality. Last but not least, thinking routines, mental exercise for students to structure their ideas and reach deeper thinking. Thank you so much, dear Bethlemite English teachers all around Latin America, for having participated in this online course. We hope that here you found so many insights to keep your classes dynamic, to keep your students active, and to keep your life inspired. We hope to see you in our near future. And of course, if you have any doubts, please don't hesitate to write, contact us, and count on us because we are there for you.